July 2019, you eventually signed for your current club, Wycombe Wanderers. How did the move come about?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Again, you're out of contract and you're speaking with clubs. And I'd spoken to, for the first time in my career, I'd spoken to clubs back in Scotland. And because I'd always sort of preferred the English game, prefer living down here. Prefer we've got a life down here, my fiance and I, and it was sort of an opportunity came up, and it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel like I was done down in England, and I think I'd spoken to a few clubs and nothing kind of had clicked. And I think after the season that I just had, I wanted to enjoy football. I wanted to play games. I wanted to play for someone that believed in me. And it got to sort of July and teams are back in pre-season, and honestly, it's the worst feeling. Teams are training again and you've not got a club yet, and because you're holding out for something. And I remember Gareth Ainsworth phoned me, and they were just about to play a pre-season friendly at Barnet. And he just kind of said that I hear you're at a club, but if you want to come train with us, I'd love to chat to you and stuff. And he's always a manager. I thought I'd like to play for you. Like you look like you'd get the best out of me. And that was kind of what I was waiting on. And I always laugh. It wasn't by any means the sort of biggest club that were keen on me or the best financial package that was given to me. It was the club for me. I felt like I was at a moment in my career that I had to choose what felt right. And I think that's partly why you're rewarded with such a special season, because you went with your gut. And I went down and I met the boys, and they were it was immediately clear that they were such a different kind of group. Things was done differently, and for me, it's the way football clubs should be run. That it's not the case just now because it's a money's game, but things, and I settled in very quickly, which was good. And I think you settle in quickly as well because you're winning games, which makes it a lot easier to settle in when you're winning every Saturday. And but by God, I had no idea what a season we were bound, we were in for when I signed there. But it was a phone call I'm thankful to the gaffer for making, that's for sure.
Because obviously, Jack, you mentioned about there being a unique group at Wycombe. We obviously spoke to Gareth quite a while back now, and he mentioned, and Joe Jacobson, and he mentioned that there is something in the Wycombe change room called the Generals, that obviously the most experienced players within the Wycombe group, basically lead that dressing room for Gareth. Tell us a little bit about the Generals and what they do.
Yeah, it is. I think they went to. It's an interesting thing because I think they went to an army. We have these things at Wycombe called development days, which say on a Thursday nobody will train, and you'll either have someone come in and talk, or you'll go to, like, they went to an army camp and they learned about teamwork and the sort of development of leadership. And the thing that stuck out to the gaffer and that was that every football club has a captain. And I think it is quite a lot, looking back now, it is quite a lot for one captain, one person to be the link between the staff and every player in the changing room. And so they basically took it upon themselves to have a captain, but generals underneath. And I think it's within those generals, they each are, they're all the experienced heads, but they touch sort of every corner of the changing room. And I think that really is the sort of powerful thing behind it, is they're not all the same kind of background. They're not the same kind of person. They all have their individual stories, and it's an interesting thing. I think for the gaffer, it's a great thing because he doesn't necessarily, he can talk to his generals and get sort of the mood of the camp through them. And it's not just one person, it's not just one captain he's speaking to. And I think for a player's point of view, it encourages you to become more of a leader. I think, like myself included, like you strive to become a general and you do things that, develop that side of your game. And I think that's been the biggest thing since I've been at Wycombe, is that, yes, my footballs went well, but off the pitch, your leadership skills, your communication skills, everything like that has gone up as well, which I think footballers don't work on. They don't work on the mental side of the game. It's coming out now, a lot about mental health and things, but it's back when I was at Port Vale, say, no one discussed anything like that. And I think it shows you how far the games came in a quick sort of time. But it is. I think it's another sort of master stroke from the gaffer, having that sort of legacy in there. But again, that's when you give a manager time,
Yeah.
he's allowed to incorporate things like that. I think it's very hard if a manager walks in the door, he needs to see who he can trust, who he gets on with. I think that's the beauty of our gaffer having been given the length of time he's been given. He can really sort of create a culture that he's happy with, and that's the biggest thing. I remember when we first walked in the door, all the new signings in the team, we got a meeting about the Wycombe culture and what it was like to be a Wanderer, and by no means are they, you don't have to be your Man City, your Liverpool, your Man United to have a culture. Wycombe has one, and for me, that was one of the things I bought into quickly, and it was, and again, it's just something that makes the club special for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like you said there, Jack, about the players opening up there. In my opinion, they're more likely to go to one of their teammates if they're having a personal issue, rather than a member of staff. And do you think that's so important that Wycombe dressing room has that group of players, those generals, that if players are having problems off the pitch personally, that they can go to their friends really and speak about them? Because in my opinion, mental health within football is such a big thing, and really should be spoken about so much more.
Yeah, massively. I think, yeah, it's easy. I think that was the one of the difficult things of a captain, is to relate to every player in the changing room. Now, there's players that will relate to everyone differently, and I think that's the beauty of the generals, is that you have a group of players, about 5, 6 players, that I think put themselves in positions that if any other players have issues, they feel that they can go talk to them. And it's not just, and the thing I've noticed most of the season as well, it's not just about players going to them. They actively go to players, which
Yeah.
for me is, they've got enough going on in our lives, but it's nice that they take an interest in other people. And I think that's, for sure, that's one of the things that keeps the change room together. I think it's been easier in previous seasons. We've had a smaller squad, and I think when you've got a smaller squad, it's easier to keep everyone together. You see some clubs with 25, 30 players, and you think, well, only 11 are playing. So how do you keep everyone on side? And that's one of the jobs of the generals, keeping everyone on the same page. And it is, like you said there, it's some mental health is something that's not spoken about enough, but it's spoken about quite a lot at Wycombe, actually, which is in things like development days and stuff. It's definitely something I think that gives us that extra edge, especially last season for sure.
Yeah, because obviously last season it was halfway through COVID-19 come about, with you guys in the playoffs. Was you worried at any point that all your efforts for you getting into those promotion spots were going to end up completely being
Yeah,
tarnished?
yeah, it was like, for everyone, it was obviously such a surreal time. Like, you just had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah,
And I remember, and I'm not sure if it was because the gaffer knew that we'd have the playoffs coming up, but I remember speaking to players from other clubs, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm not sure what we're doing. Like, I've not really heard from anyone at the club." And every week, every couple of weeks, our gaffer would like ring us individually and just have a chat, just make sure your family's okay, make sure everyone's okay.
wow,
And like, for me, that was another sign again of his man management skills. And it wasn't just left to his staff to phone you or the captain to phone you. He himself took it upon himself to make sure everyone was okay and everyone was dealing with it and everyone was safe. And yeah, it was a horrible time, but it sort of put football in perspective. I mean, the whole world's shutting down, and you're like, what is going on? And it did hit a point when, obviously, the whole thing with the big six or whatever it was in League One started to throw their weight around. You kind
yeah,
of get worried that your efforts are going to be, for nothing. And I think for us, I was even more buzzing at a season like last, that we didn't sneak up in second place. We went to the playoffs and we still had to win 3 games of football to get up.
yeah,
And you see a lot about the thing I was most gutted about as well, is that we'd been top 2 for such a long time for the majority of the season,
yeah,
and then right at the last minute you slip down to 8th, and you do then get nervous that we're going to be one of the teams here that miss out. Tranmere was another one that, unfortunately, the way it happened and the way it played out, and yeah, the fact that we were just buzzing that we got given the chance to then finish off our season, finish off what we'd started, and I think that makes just us all remember that we deserve to be where we are, because if they'd promoted the top three through points per game, then yeah, there might have been an argument, saying that we managed to sneak in there. But the fact that we still had to win 3 games of football, or 2 playoffs and then the final, it really made you sort of almost have that feeling that you deserve to be there. And to experience another Wembley win was just, a truly unbelievable season, because I think I'd grown so close to the boys at the team that we were on the cusp of achieving something so monumental, that to actually go through with it was just, there's literally no words to describe that feeling at the full-time whistle, I don't think.
Yeah, of course. We spoke there about, obviously, it was an unbelievable season, an unbelievable group of players. And like we said there, the generals really guiding the team. But on the flip side, something that I've got a mate who supports Wycombe, Charlie, his name is, what he says is that while there's the generals and the older sides to the group, there's also, a real nice core of young talent. From your point of view, out of those players which have played for Wycombe that are on the younger side more recently, who do you tip to really make it at the top level?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think that's one of the things that we found hardest this season, as I think the generals played such a big part on and off the pitch last season. Now, I think from what I get, is that we are transitioning as a club and as a group of players, that the generals are all of an age now, and the championship is an unbelievable standard. But we can't rely on them as much as we did last season. Now, that's something I think we've struggled with, is that it's became on that sort of next level of players to step up to the mantle and take on that sort of role. And but like you say, it's important to not just have all experienced heads. You need the young talent coming through. And I think the introduction of our B team when we started this season was huge, because I think the club admits itself that previous owners were very short-sighted and wanted to save money, so they cut the B team and the youth team. And I think it's the most short-sighted thing you could have done is get rid of the youth talent coming up and through. And I think it was such an important thing this season that we got the B team. And there's a couple of players, even Anis Mehmeti, who we took from Norwich. He scored in our win against Huddersfield, and for me, he's one that I would happily put my name to earmarking for the future, because I think he's 2021, and he's he brought something to Wycombe that we didn't have. That creative sort of getting on the ball, making passes and things, and it's quite interesting to see him take it all in his stride this season. And he's hit the ground running, which is difficult for a young player to do. And he's obviously been inconsistent, which is inevitable with any young player. But he's for me, he's definitely one that in training and things you can just see has that sort of natural knack for striking a ball, making passes and things. And he's come up trumps for us a few times this season. And I think given a chance, he'd really go on to establish himself as a good championship player for sure.
Yeah, and of course, in order to get to the championship, you had to beat Oxford in the playoff final. Before we talk about the game, how did you go?
He said that through gritted teeth, I think.
Yeah. How did you go about even preparing to play at Wembley again?
Yeah, I think it was it was a really surreal thing, because we'd obviously went months without playing football, and coming back to the playoffs, I think I'd picked up an injury in November, and I hadn't played since November. And coming back into the biggest game of your career was something I found very difficult but relishing at the same time, because you knew that the boys had your back if something went wrong. And preparing for Wembley was so different because of COVID. There's fans aren't there. There's no one when you're walking on the bus. There's no one there. There's no atmosphere. It's just, and it was our first experience of playing the playoffs, and then the final was our first experience of playing with no fans. Now we're used to it, but back then it was surreal. It was like reserve game, 23s game, you know, just with no fans. And I think only the fact that we were at Wembley reminded you of how big a game it was, you know, because there was just obviously no atmosphere and things. And yeah, it was, I think the worst thing for me personally was that the game was at 7 o'clock or 7:30 at night. And we were in the hotel, we were in the Hilton just across from Wembley, all day. And that is, for me, that is the worst thing, was you were sat there all day, and you know, people are wishing you well and stuff, but it doesn't help. You know, it just adds to the pressure, and it adds to the sort of build up of the game. And you know, from my bedroom window, I could see Wembley, and I just sat and looked at it and thought, like, I'll see you in a few hours. But those few hours pass so slowly, and you try your best not to think about, you know, how much winning the game will change your life or change your career, because you don't want to add that pressure to yourself. But it's hard not to do at the same time, obviously. And because every player wants to win, you just try and, for me, I just try and envision winning, what it would feel like, how we would do it. And literally the team talk before the match, another Gareth Ainsworth masterclass, he basically, at the end of the sort of tactical meeting, our captain, Matt Bloomfield, who's been at the club since, I think, 2003, he made his debut, I think. And so he's like Mr. Wycombe. And he was captaining us that out in the field that day. And the gaffer sort of switched off the lights and told us to just close our eyes and picture Blooms lifting the trophy, and what it would mean to him, what it would mean to his family, what it would mean for us seeing him lift the trophy. So nothing about us winning. It was all about sort of Blooms and lifting the trophy and what it would mean to him after all these years. And like afterwards, you think, we have to win, like for his sake more than ours. Like I was winning for him, not for me. And you know, that it was moments like that we were all kind of connected in our belief that we would win for Blooms. And I think by that, I mean, you know, you walk out and you think, we have to win. And I remember we walked out of the tunnel, and you know, we did the lineup and the national anthem came on, and our gaffer honestly sang it at the top of his voice. And that and obviously there's no fans at all, so you can hear every word, everyone can hear everything. And none of our players really sang, and none of their players sang, and their manager didn't sing. And our gaffer, at the top of his voice, sang this national anthem. I honestly thought to myself, like, okay, 1-0, like we've got an edge there somehow. We've got an edge, and I think it's those little victories that add up over the course of it, and yeah, it managed to get us over the line. Because you know, Oxford were a great team last year. They really, really were a good team last year. And you know, if you were going on football teams alone, then you know Oxford would have won. But the game's not played like that, and I think that just shows you the extra stuff that we brought to the game that managed to get us over the line.
I mean, yeah, in terms of intensity, I mean, where did that match rank in terms of all the games you've played? Because, of course, I remember there were times where, you know, it was all Oxford, and then Wycombe would take their chance, and then they go and win it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it was, because they have a lot of attacking ability in that team. And I remember the gaffer literally said to me, you know, you keep Marcus Brown quiet, you've done your job. And luckily I managed to do that. And but it's things like that. He just simplified everything. But I remember in the first sort of 5-10 minutes, it must be the nerves, and you're like running around and you're knackered, and you're like this, and you have to sort of talk to yourself and think, well, you can't be knackered, it's only 10 minutes into the game. But it's like the adrenaline and the nerves and everything from the whole day is just weighing down on you. And like, you know, every run feels difficult at times, because you just don't want to be the one that lets in the goal or make the mistake, or you know, it's quite interesting. But I think when we got to, I think, was it 1-0 at half time, and we just thought, and that season we were great at holding on to leads. Like when we got 1-0 ahead, we would lock up shop, and that was it. That was game over. And in Oxford they had chances for players of their ability. You know, they had serious chances, and I just kept thinking, this is our day. Like this is it. This is going to be our day. And there is a belief that things are meant to happen. And because by no means were we the best team in that league, but we managed to get up, and yeah, it's such special memories. I think that, I feel very fortunate to have the winner's medal on my shelf. It's something that I'll forever look back on and have great memories of, for sure.
Yeah, Wycombe now in the Championship, Jack.
Yeah.
Obviously, anyone looking from the outside, it can seem like that Wycombe are struggling. To put it that way. Sum up the campaign from inside the camp so far.
Yeah, I think it's been tough. There's no other way to get around it. It's been tough. Like, it's we killed ourselves right at the beginning. I think we lost the first 7 games because we were adjusting to a new league. Everyone was learning, and we didn't learn quick enough. It took us 7 games or 8 games to get our foot in the door. It's been such a like you said there, we have struggled from the outside, and we took such a long time to get going. And it's a league of such fine margins. It's honestly just insane. I mean, I remember in the 6th game of the season, we went to Reading, who were top, and how we didn't get something out of that game. They scored with their only shot on target. They scored, sorry, with their only shot on target. And honestly, I felt like, when is this going to turn? And you think, like, even after Saturday, it gives you that bit of belief again. But it has. It's been a long season. It's been a hard season. But it's definitely been a season that we've all learned so much from. And, it is a pity that we haven't picked up more points. But that is how cutthroat the league is. If you make mistakes, if you don't take your chances, then teams in this league will punish you, because it's, one of the most competitive leagues in the world. And it's unfortunate that we've still got a lot to play for. It's funny because normally by, February, March, you're on this sort of downward slope, and you don't have too many games left, but there's still 18 games to play because we've had games called off with COVID and everything else. So, there is still a lot to play for. And by God, if it's one team that can do the impossible, I firmly believe it's us. And, we've kind of put off talk of any league, and, it's just about the next game. And it's up there with probably the most cliched saying in football, just focusing on the next game. But I think in this league, only the top teams can look past the next game. Yeah. I think everyone is, because if you look past the next game, you'll get beat, and it's that cutthroat, and it's been a learning curve for everyone. Even our manager says it, it's the first time for him as well. And I think we're on a journey together, and the club has long-term plans that, they've got in place. And I feel fortunate that I'm able to be a part of
that. And it must be so gutting, Jack, that in the season that it's the biggest in the club's history, that the fans can't be there.
You have no idea. I think we played a game against Stoke midweek, the back end of last year, and I think it was during that period that clubs were allowed 2,000 or 4,000 fans, and we had 2,000 fans in, and it was their first time to see us since the promotion, and it was November, and we came out to warm up. I think they all had to be in at a certain time, so they were all there when we came out to warm up. And they gave us a standing ovation, and it was only 2,000 fans, and everyone had shivers. And I think they were, for the first 10, 15 minutes, they were cheering every pass, every header, every tackle. And you could just sense that it was like a gratefulness that they were even there. And, whether that was League One, League Two, Championship, they were just happy to be at football. And I think it was obviously a big moment for fans being back, but it was even bigger for players. I mean, honestly, it's just going out every game when no fans is it was okay for the playoff games, and that was about it, because there was so much riding on those games.
Yeah.
But now, it'll almost feel like a dream that, and this is what makes us, more determined to try and stay in this league, because for the fans for it to be the season that we're up and the fans not get to experience that must be so painful. And I think everyone watching football on TV now is run its course. Everyone just wants to be there live and experience it. And the sooner that happens, the better for sure. Because it generally can't go on like this, because I think you realise now, again, it's a cliche, but like football's nothing without fans. But by God, like you realise that when you're playing every game behind closed doors, it's just horrendous. It really is, and it's not, it's not the game that we love. It's completely different. So I think that's probably worked against us, as not having fans. I think, we were a team last season that even against your Sunderland, your Pompeys, the big teams that you could apply a certain pressure when they had fans. You could apply an uneasiness, and the fans, and that worked in our favour a lot. And I think that would have helped us this season, as if teams weren't beating us at half time, their fans get uneasy and things.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the big things we've missed, is the fans being on our side. And I'm sure they'd have managed to help us suck the ball in the net more than one occasion if they'd been there. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out like that.